welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna make a pretty quick, pretty simple crossbody bag that is so chic. Today, we are making the Carrie, and it comes to us from Sallie Tomato Patterns. Now, this first version is very fun. It's very fun. Look at how bright and fun this is. So on this first version, I played with the material just a little bit and I diverged from the pattern just a bit. We'll go over that in a moment. But you can see this bag is a nice, kind of a, not too small, it's not like a really small crossbody, but it's more of like a small, medium-sized crossbody. It has a turn lock, which I'm still trying to decide if we're going to do the turn lock today, if we're going to do magnetic snaps. We'll decide that soon. And you can see on the front here, it has a flap. You fold it back. And then inside, it's just a nice basic small bag with a zip pocket on the inside. No bells and whistles, no complicated sides or anything like that. It's just a front panel, back panel, flap, and gusset, and then a strap. So this is a really great pattern for beginners who are just getting into curves, because these curves are some of the most beginner-friendly ones you're gonna find. So as you can see on this version, it is a little squishy. It's a bit of a squishy bag. This is because I did not use any interfacing or foam or anything. I used vinyl for the exterior and waterproof canvas for the lining, and that's it. So there is really no extra structure here, which I love. I love a more slouchy bag. I think it's especially great for traveling because I can kind of squish it in and not have to worry about it. However, the pattern does call for a sew in foam, which is what we will be doing in the tutorial today. You can see that the pattern has this really fun turn lock on the front. Like I said, I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to do a turn lock or a magnetic snap. I did do a poll on Instagram, and the majority of you did say magnetic snap, so it's probably the route we're going to go today, so I can just kind of show you a different way to add, a closure to this bag. On this bag, I also did use a previously made strap. This is just like a fun little strap end, and then this is just webbing. I highly suggest you use webbing when you can, especially if you're not a big fan of making your own straps, but in the tutorial today, we will be making a strap per the pattern. So we're going to do our best at sticking to the pattern, except for maybe the turn lock. That we might just use a magnetic snap on. So thank you as always to Sallie Tomato for allowing me to use your patterns in my tutorials. They have so many patterns. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. It's like every week they're coming out with new patterns for big bags, little bags, quick bakes, cork, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you go check out their website. They have everything, and also all your sewing notions. They have everything on their website. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, please leave them down in the comment section. We will have timestamps for this video. It should be a quicker make. This is a more simple bag. I do say a very beginner-friendly bag. It's really neat. If you look at the photos that they used for promoting this bag, Jessica made it out of sequins. And it's just like the most beautiful thing in the world. I'm not quite ready to deal with sequins yet. I'm not quite ready to sew them, and I'm not ready for the cleanup yet, but I do have it on my list to remake this bag just like she did using sequins. Okay, before we get started, I will show you the bag on, just so you can see size-wise how it looks. All right, for reference, I am 5 feet 4 inches in a size small. This strap is a little long for me, so let me shorten it up. All right, so you see, it's like a perfect everyday bag. It'll fit your wallet, your phone, your basics, It's not going to be a diaper bag. It's not going to be your laptop bag, but it is a great everyday bag size. I think this bag is just adorable, honestly. I love it. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, so here's everything I'm using for the bag today. I will be using Quilt Cotton for the exterior. The pattern calls for ½ a yard of fabric, but I had these 2 cuts here. These are both fat quarters. So put together, it makes a ½ a yard. So I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit. I'm going to switch up the flap from the front and back panels. We'll see how it works out. But I am using Quilt Cotton. For the contrast, which is the snap connectors and the strap, I am using vinyl. And you're going to need about ½ yard of that. Or 1 roll. And 1 roll is really nice because it's about 52 inches long. So you don't have to piece together your strap. You can just cut 1 long strap, which is what I'm doing today. And then for the lining, you're going to need about 1/3 of a yard. I'm using waterproof canvas, so I don't have to interface it in any way. This is OtterTex waterproof canvas, so it's a little bit thicker, but I think that will add some nice support to the bag. For the interfacing, I do suggest you use woven interfacing on any Quilt Cotton material. It just provides a little bit more structure. It prevents it from fraying or stretching. I would say you need about 1/2 to 1 yard, depending on how much you're using. If your Quilt Cotton is on the exterior and on the lining, I would suggest a yard. If it's just on one or the other, a half a yard should be okay. And then you're also gonna need some sew-in foam. The pattern suggests 2/3 of a yard if it's 20-inch wide foam, or 1/3 of a yard if it's 58-inch wide foam. I use the Soft and Stable from Biani, and I really, really love it. So I did not use the foam on the first bag, but I am gonna use it on the bag we make today. I love foam. I think it gives bags great structure. Okay, here's the hardware I'll be using today. First, you're gonna need some zipper tape. You're gonna need 9 inches or longer. With zipper tape, I like to go a little bit longer because then I can cut it down, and then a zipper pull to go with that. For the bag strap, I have 2 1-inch swivel hooks, 2 1-inch D-rings, and 1 1-inch slider. I also have my bag tag as always, and then I will be using a magnetic snap closure today instead of a turn lock. Either should be great. I think the magnetic snap will work. This magnetic snap is a rivet snap. It's from Cam Snap, so you can see the front part is the magnet, and then the back is just this nice little smooth rivet. It's really nice because you don't have to worry about this rivet rubbing against any other fabric and eventually wearing it down or tearing it like you do with the magnetic snaps that have the prongs on the back. All right, here's all the other stuff. As always, lots and lots of clips. I will be using this 505 basting spray. This is gonna be to hold the material to the foam before I baste it together. I always have some Beacon 3-in-1 craft glue. This is really great if you do need to cover up anything, especially if you're using the turn lock, then you're gonna wanna add some glue into your screws to make sure they stay there. A lighter is great for cleaning up all the little thread ends. I have my handy dandy 1-inch by 6-inch ruler. Next, I have my chalk marking tool and my air erasing marking tool. These are great for quilt cotton and waterproof canvas. If you're using vinyl, you're gonna also want some sort of a leather or vinyl marking tool. I have another chalk marking tool because you can never have too many, I guess. And then I have my stiletto. This is gonna make sewing the curves much easier. It's kind of like that third hand that can get close to the needle so your fingers don't have to. My Tula Pink snips, which are my favorite. The thread I'm using today in the top thread is a Tex 45 weight thread. This can be a little thick for some domestic sewing machines, but these Tex threads are nice and chunky. They look really nice when you're top stitching. If this is too big, try a Tex 35 weight. For the bobbin, I just have my standard Gutermann thread from Joann's, and the needle I'm using today is a Microtex 8012. I just want to show you guys the rest of the tape, just in case we end up using this today. My Kimberbell tape, I love this stuff. You can stick it to anything and it doesn't leave any residue. It doesn't pull up your material, it's great. Next is my super sticky tape. Now this is leather tape. It's made for leather. It's very, very sticky. You don't want to sew over it very much because it will gum up your needle. But I have a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch. It's double-sided tape. If you're going to be sticking something somewhere and you need to stay there forever, this is your tape. And then this is a 1/4 inch double-sided tape that's wash away, and it's fantastic. You can sew over it and your needle's going to be fine. All right, let's go through these pattern pieces. First, you have pattern piece A. This is going to be the front and the back. So you're gonna need 2 cuts from your exterior. Anything that's quilt cotton, I do suggest you add that woven interfacing to. So I have this already interfaced, and then 2 cuts from your lining. And this is waterproof canvas, so it's not interfaced. Pattern piece B over here, this is gonna be your flaps. You have 1 cut of lining, 1 cut of your exterior material. Pattern piece C is your gusset. You're gonna have 2 cuts of it, 2 cuts from your lining, 2 cuts from your exterior material. Pattern piece G down here, this is for the zip pocket in the lining. This is, again, just waterproof canvas, so not interfaced with anything. We will be rounding the corners of the A and B pieces in just a moment. Pattern pieces D and E are your crossbody strap and your strap tabs. Now, I did alter the strap tab just a little bit. I added 3/4 of an inch to the height, so the tall part. I added 3/4 of an inch to the height of each one of them because the pattern does have you leave raw edges for these strap tabs, but I do like to just fold them under so I don't have those raw edges. And I'm gonna show you how I do that, but in order to accommodate that, make sure everything is still nicely fitted together, adding a little bit to the top and the bottom is great. And then for the crossbody strap, instead of cutting 2 pieces of material that we then sew together to make a longer strap, since my vinyl was a roll and it was already 52 inches long, I just cut one that is 52 inches long. Okay, and then here are all of our foam cuts. If you're going for the more slouchy bag like I did in the first one with the vinyl and the waterproof canvas, you don't need any of this. But since we're gonna do a more structured bag today, pattern piece H is the front and back body, pattern piece I is the flap, and pattern piece J is the gusset. So you're gonna need 2 of those cuts. And we're gonna attach these on and see how it turns out. So first we're gonna attach the foam to the front and back. So you're gonna need pattern pieces H and your exterior pattern pieces A. And what we're gonna do, you should notice that your foam is a little bit smaller than your exterior. So if I lay my exterior right side down and put my foam over it, I'm gonna line it up on the bottom edge of the exterior, so I should still have this right up here. That's gonna help reduce bulk later. So you can just lay this on top, clip it in place, or you can grab some of this 505 spray and you can just spray the back of your foam, and then you can take your exterior piece and lay it right side up and line it up along the bottom edge and the sides and just give it a good press down. I always like to work with the material, the fabric, right side up when I'm dealing with foam. So when I baste this in place too, I'm gonna baste it with the material right side up, not with the foam right side up, because I'm most concerned about this. And you just have to remember it's okay if it's not perfect. So do that for your other piece A exterior. And the thing I've learned about this 505 spray is that it's great at holding it for now, but it's not great at holding it forever. So if you spray these now and you're like, oh, I'll get back to work on this in a few days, it might not hold them together anymore. You usually want to spray it and then right away sew it. Like you can already kind of pull it up over here. So there are my A pieces ready to go. Next, grab your exterior pattern piece B and your foam piece I, and we're gonna do the same thing. Once again, this is gonna go on the bottom edge of your exterior flap. So I just spray the foam and then attach it on. And just like before, I take the sticky side of the foam up and then take my material right side up, line it up on the bottom edge, press it down. There we go. So now the flap is prepped. And then for the gusset, which is your exterior panel piece C and your foam J, instead of lining it up with one of the short edges, you're gonna center it between them. So it's the same width as the piece, but you're gonna have a little bit of overhang on both sides. So just make sure you center it. Don't put it all the way to one of the short edges. So to do that, it's probably gonna be easiest if you take your exterior material and lay it wrong side up and take your foam with the glue side down. Just kind of eyeball it. You can always grab a ruler and measure to make sure that they're equal if you'd like, or you can just live on the edge with me and just give it a guess. Okay, just make sure you give it a good press from the front as well, so in case the material started wrinkling or anything. Okay, so now we have our exterior front and back, we have our flap, and we have our gussets. We're gonna take these to the sewing machine and we're just gonna baste at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the edges that are right along the edges of the material. So I'm not basting right here, okay, because then I would have a stitch line going across my fabric. I'm only basting on the edges of my foam where it's right against the edge of my exterior material. Alright, so once you have all of that done, go ahead and put the gussets to the side, and now we're just going to work on the exterior and the flap. So the one thing you want to print off with this pattern piece are the templates. You have a 3.5 inch circle template and a 2.5 inch circle template. We're going to use the 3.5 inch circle template on the exterior front and back. So I'm going to take one of my exterior pieces and lay it wrong side up, and then all you have to do, or you can lay it right side up, honestly. It might be better right side up just in case your interfacing is a little wonky on the back. So I'm just going to lay it so that the edges of the circle come on the right side and on the bottom. So you just want them to kind of rub up against it. You don't want them to go over it or anything. It just kind of rubs up right against that. I just like touch it with my finger and see if I can feel it pushing out at all. Then you're going to grab your fabric marking tool and you're just going to trace the curve right next to the corner. And guys, it doesn't have to be perfect. Do not worry about it. So now I have this nice little curve mark right here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, lining up the left raw edge and the bottom raw edge. And make sure you're always making sure that this is your top here, right? And then I'm just going to trace the rounded part of the circle right next to the corner. And then I'm going to grab some fabric scissors. And I'm going to trim right along that mark. And yes, you are trimming off the basting stitches that are on that corner. That's okay. It'll be fine. The majority of this is basted to the foam, so it's not going to hurt it. There we go. And now we have this nice little rounded bottom for our exterior. Repeat this with the front or the back, whichever one you're doing next. So these are pattern pieces A. This is the front and the back. Once you're done with the exterior, make sure you repeat that for the lining. So it's just the exact same thing. Same pattern piece, just round the bottom corners of your lining. All right, once you have the lining and the exterior all prepped, you can just set those to the side for now. So we are going to repeat that process with the flap, but we're going to use the smaller template this time. So once you go with the flap, make sure you're working with the bottom edge, so that's where the foam is. And just like before, line it up with the bottom edge and the corner edges. And do this for both the exterior and the lining. And then once you have them marked, all you have to do is trim right along that mark. Okay, those are done. You can put them to the side. So now grab your exterior front main panel. And if you're installing the turn lock, you're going to install your male turn lock here. We're going to try to install the female side of the magnetic snap here. So a good habit to get in whenever you have pattern pieces is to always mark the midpoint on the top and the bottom. I never do. So I need to just fold this in half and find my midpoint marks. So you can fold it in half and use a marking tool, or you can grab some scissors and make the tiniest little clip. You could also stick a pin in the middle, whatever's easiest. And I like to mark the midpoint on the top and bottom of all of these pieces. So I will just do that as we go along. Okay, so I have my female magnetic snap and the back of the rivet for it. And using that midpoint mark, we're going to measure up 3 inches from the bottom, centered, and we'll mark a dot there. All right, so if you're using the male end of a turn lock, you're going to use your washer to center that here, mark the placement for the prongs for the turn lock, and install it. For me, I'm just going to punch a hole out right there so I can set my magnetic snap. So this press has the hole punch die on it already, so I'm just going to punch a hole right where I marked the dot. And I'm going through the material and the foam. And the foam is great because it gives more support to our magnetic snaps or to your turn lock, because that is the part of the bag that's going to be used the most and it's going to be pulled on a lot. And so you want to have a lot of support there. So if you're doing the turn lock with the male part of the turn lock, you also want to include some Decovil light, some Decovil heavy, some piece of foam, some sort of firmer stabilizer on the back with the installation of it, so that it's not just pulling on your fabric every time you use it. So here we go. I've got the little rivet goes on the back. The female part goes on the front. I can grab my rivet press that has the die for this snap and just set it into place and press it down. And there we go. Easy peasy. And we'll do the male side of the magnetic snap in a future step. Next up, grab your E strap connectors, and on the wrong side, mark a midpoint line going along the long edge. So parallel to the longer edges if your connectors have a longer edge, like mine do because I added 3/4 of an inch to each one of them. And then grab some double-sided tape and lay it right down that middle. I don't let the double-sided tape go all the way to the short edges because I will be sewing there. I mean, I will end up sewing over this tape a little bit, which is fine. You just don't want to sew over it a lot, like on a bag strap or something. All right, now I can just remove the paper and fold the long raw edges, wrong sides together to meet that midpoint mark. Do this for both sides. Now I have the long raw edges on the back, and on the front it's nice and clean. Do this for the other strap connector. All right, so now we'll take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna top stitch along both of these longer folded edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so this next part is optional. If you extended them like I did, then what I like to do is, you can see we have these raw edges on the short here. In the pattern you leave those, but I like to just kind of tuck them under. So I marked 3/4 of an inch in on the back side from these short edges. So I have these little marks here that are 3/4 of an inch in from the short edge. I'm then gonna take some double-sided tape, preferably one I can sew over, and I'm just gonna add it right above the line. So it's right above that 3/4 of an inch marked line. And then I'll remove the paper. and then I'm gonna fold down the raw edge, and this is all in the back. I'm gonna fold it down to meet that marked line. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm folding this down 3/8 of an inch. So I have a little 3/8 of an inch folded down, and now I don't have a raw edge. So I'm gonna do that for both of these straps on both sides of the short edges. All right, I'm also adding a few clips because that tape is not quite sticky enough for the thickness of my vinyl. Now grab your 2 exterior gusset panels and your D-rings. And what we wanna do is mark the midpoint on the 2 shorter edges on the top of our gusset panels. Now I'm gonna measure 1 inch down from this top midpoint, and I'm just gonna mark a line. So my ruler is 1 inch wide. I'm just gonna mark a 1 inch line with my air erasing marker. And I'm gonna do this for both of them. And we're using that midpoint mark to make sure that our 1 inch mark is centered. So now you're going to take one of your strap connectors and grab some tape if it's helpful. And if you're gonna use tape, just add the tape right below that 1 inch mark on your exterior, and we want to connect our tab right at that 1 inch mark. So just below it, just line up the top of your tab with that 1 inch mark. And again, remember my material's folded in, but it doesn't have to be. It can be left raw. Just try to keep it straight, and that's just going to require using your eyeballs. So now what we want to do is we want to top stitch a little box here to hold this down. So you're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the top folded edge and from the sides, and your box is just going to be 1/2 of an inch. This might be helpful if you mark this first. So I measured 5/8 of an inch from this top folded edge. So that way I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch around the sides, 1/8 of an inch from the top, and then I'm just going to go right over this line here. So I have a nice little 1/2 of an inch box right here. If you want to also add a rivet, go ahead and do that. If you want to add an X, you can do that as well. Okay, so you can see I left my tails nice and long. That's just because I didn't backstitch. And so to close off this edge, I'm just going to pull those bobbin threads on the back side up until I see a little loop of the top thread. And then I use a stiletto to just get in there and pull the top thread to the back. I'm going to do this for both top threads. And then once I have all the threads on the back, I'm just going to split them up into 2 and 2, and then triple knot it to close it. And this is just an alternative to backstitching. You could also just backstitch and it will provide the same security. It just looks a little bit neater. Makes it hard to see where the stitch begins and ends on the front. So there you go, this is what it looks like. I'm debating putting a rivet here. I think it would look really nice. Yeah, I think I will. So yeah, just for a little extra bling, I am gonna add rivets, but I'll add them at the end. So the next step is to take one of your D-rings and thread it over the bottom edge of this tab, just like that. And then pull it all the way up as far as it will go to where you sewed your little box. And make sure everything is straight. And if you want to use some tape here, you can use tape. Otherwise, just hold it down. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew along the bottom edge, making a little box. So once again, I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm going to mark up from this bottom folded edge 5/8 of an inch. So that way I'll have a nice little box that's 1/2 of an inch tall. Once again, I left the tails long, so I will use the bobbin threads to pull them to the back and knot them. All right, isn't that cute? And it's just a nice little way to secure your D-ring. It's just an alternative, and I like it. I like it a lot. I think my strap is a little crooked. It's always a little crooked. Okay, for fun, I'm just gonna add some rivets. So I'm going to punch a hole in the center of each of these little boxes we made on the top and the bottom. And then I'm just gonna grab a couple rivets and pop them in there. Oh yeah, that looks really cute. Now all I have to do is grab the dies for my rivet press, pop those in place, and then just set it real quick. And there we go. Super cute. So I'm gonna repeat that whole process for the other gusset, again, on the top edge of the gusset. Alrighty, aren't these cute? I love this. Now take your 2 gusset panels and we're going to sew along their bottom edges. So lay them right sides together, making sure that the strap connectors are both at the top over here. And just line up their bottom edges right sides together. You can clip them in place if it makes it easier. It's a short edge though, you should be okay. So now we're gonna sew along this clipped bottom edge at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. So once you have these sewn together, you can finger press them or press it with an iron. Just flatten it out. We're gonna take it back to the sewing machine and we're gonna top stitch along both edges of this seam at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to get this a nice, clean, flat bottom. Well, I forgot to turn the camera on for that. I apologize, but it's just a little, I just made like a little box right here, just 1/8 of an inch away on each side of that seam. And this is what your gusset should look like now. This is gonna look cute. This is gonna be really cute. So now we're gonna work on our flap, and depending how you're doing this, you might have to do it a little different than the pattern. So we're using magnetic snaps here, which means ideally we want it to just go through the lining. So first things first, let's go ahead and mark the midpoints on the bottom and top edges of both of our pattern piece B's. And now on the lining piece on the bottom, we're gonna mark 1.5 inches up from the bottom edge. I'm gonna grab a little scrap cut of foam as well, just to provide a little bit of extra support for the snap. Since the snap's not going through both panels, our snap can if you want it to, but I'm not gonna do that today just in case you are using one of the magnetic closures that has the prongs. You won't be able to put it through both panels, so I'm just gonna show you through one panel. So I'm gonna grab my hole punch and I'm going to install my magnetic snap now. Now, if you're doing the turn lock, you're not going to install that yet. You're gonna wait until you build your flap, and then you're gonna install the female portion, which is a hole in all of the material. But since I'm doing a magnetic snap, I can install it now. So I'm just gonna punch a hole where I marked it. Then I'm also just gonna punch a hole in the center of this scrap piece of foam. And now I have the male end of my magnetic snap, and the male end needs to go in through the right side of your lining. So the top right side of your lining. And then on the back, I'm gonna stick my foam over that and then add my snap closure. If you're using the prongs, you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna stick your foam over the washer and then you're gonna close it. And then you wanna cover the prongs as well with some sort of material, maybe woven interfacing, Decovil-lite, whatever you've got, but you do wanna cover those prongs so they don't rub against the back of your exterior material and then wear it down. Okay, so now I'm gonna install my die again for this. And then I can just set this magnetic snap rivet. And there we go. And now that is ready to go. Again, if you're doing the turn lock, all you're doing at that step is just marking placement. Now take your lining and your exterior and lay them right sides together, lining up all of the edges. And we're gonna clip along the side and the bottom. So we're not gonna sew along the top edge, only the side and the bottom. So just make sure it's all lined up together. Now let's take this to the sewing machine and sew along the sides and the bottom at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and make sure you backstitch at the top because we will be turning it out through the top after this. So after you have this sewn, you're gonna trim the seam allowance in half. You want it nice and thin, especially if you have that foam. So just, might be easier to see it from the foam side up. Just go along the edge. Don't get too close to your stitches. You don't want to accidentally cut them. You just want to trim this up so the edge isn't all bulky. Okay, now let's flip it right side out. This is looking really cute. I'm very excited to see this all come together. And it's a pretty quick bag. I mean, it really is. There's not a whole lot to this, which I love. All right, here is our flap. That is looking cute. Okay, so you can grab an iron if you'd like. I usually just kind of roll it, and we're gonna flatten it out real nice. I think the foam actually helps a lot. It's making it very easy to flatten this out without the use of an iron. So I'm going to add a few clips along the edge just to make sure nothing moves around on me. Wow, this looks really good. I gotta be honest, using that foam, it's looking a lot. I mean, the other one, the vinyl version didn't look bad, but this is looking better. This looks really good. I recommend the foam so far. All right, so once this is done, you can go ahead and top stitch around all the edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I just want to see what this looks like real quick. So I'm gonna take my snap it in place. I think that's gonna be lovely. It's gonna go around like that. I always I have no patience. I have to see what oh, that's gonna look cute. These are good combinations. I like that. Okay, you can go ahead and put these to the side. So now grab your pattern piece G's. This is the last prep step. We're just gonna prep the zipper now. And mark the midpoint on the top edges of both pattern piece G's. And then select one of them, and on the back side of it, you're going to measure 3/4 of an inch down from the top edge and 3/4 of an inch in from the side edges. And then you're going to measure 1/2 of an inch down from that top line to make a box that is 7.5 inches wide by 1/2 of an inch tall. All right, the pattern suggests you add your bag tag now, but I'm actually going to wait because I added it a little too close to the pocket on the first one. So I'm going to do the pocket first, and then we'll do bag tag on the lining. You can grab both your lining panels and just mark the top and the bottom midpoints on both of these if you haven't already. So now grab one of your lining panels to be the pocket panel and lay it right side up. And then take your zipper pocket panel that you have the rectangle marked on the back of, and you're gonna lay that right side down. And you're gonna line this up so that this top edge of the pocket is 1/2 of an inch below the top edge of the lining panel and centered. That's where those midpoint marks are gonna come in helpful. This is where I like to use that Kimberbell tape. If you're using quilt cotton, you can use pins here and just pin them together. Okay, now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're just going to stitch right along that 7.5 inch by 1/2 of an inch rectangle. You can see mine's disappearing very quickly. Just make sure you pivot at the corners really nicely, okay, all the way around. So once you have that stitched in place, go ahead and mark yourself a midpoint line running along the entire length of it, and then mark little triangles that kind of come in about 1/2 of an inch or so. So triangle down from the top corner to that midpoint line on both edges. So now grab a seam ripper and rip right along that middle line just enough for you to grab your scissors and cut right down the center. So as you cut along the center line, once you get to the tip of the triangle, you're gonna cut right towards the corner of the stitching. You're gonna get so close, but you're not gonna cut the thread. Don't cut the thread, but you wanna get really close to it. So you're gonna do that for all 4 corners. And then you can flip your pocket panel to the back. Now, this is much easier to do with quilt cotton than it is to do with waterproof canvas. Waterproof canvas is tricky and usually requires a bit of tape to help with this step. What I'm also going to try doing is pressing this because waterproof canvas is plastic on the back side. Once you heat it up, the plastic kind of melts and it can melt to itself, kind of gluing itself together on the back. So we're going to try that. However, with waterproof canvas, you don't want the iron to touch the back of it, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. It's like an adventure sewing sometimes, you know? You don't ever know what's going to happen. Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? Who knows? All right, so I'm just working on this top skinny edge, and I have the lining right side up so that I don't have to worry about my iron touching the back of it. And I'm just going to hold it on here just for a few seconds to heat up the back of the waterproof canvas and try to get it to melt to itself. All right, once you have one side done, go ahead and do the same with the other side. So I flip it to the back so I can see it a little bit, kind of pinch it with my fingers just to get it started. I know it doesn't hold it perfectly. Then flip it to the front and try to kind of work it around. And if anything, just remember this is a lining zipper, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Using a lot of heat and steam does help with the waterproof canvas. All right, so that actually worked out really well. Look at that, look how flat that is. So trick is heat and steam. All right, so now let's grab our zipper tapes. This beautiful zipper tape comes from So Majestic. I love it. And I'm just gonna kind of pull it out. I'm not even really measuring. I'm just making sure it's bigger than the hole by an inch on each side or so. You don't want this too close to the edges. Now I'm just gonna put on my zipper pull. Okay, so when the zipper is installed, it's going to be closed towards the left. So when it's closed, it's going towards the left. And you can see we're just gonna plop that right over it. Oh, that's gonna be so cute. Okay, so take your double-sided tape that you can sew over, and this is up to you. You can apply it to the edge of the zipper tape, or you can apply it to the back. Honestly, if you're worried about the tape showing, just apply it to the back of your pocket, right along the edge, on the top and the bottom of that hole. All right, now let's take the tape off of the top edge. And I know for some reason, double-sided tape just doesn't like to stick to waterproof canvas. There we go. Now take your zipper, right side up, zipper pull going towards the left when closed. Take your lining panel, right side up, center it over your zipper tape. Don't let any of these edges get too close to the opening over here, okay? So just center it over there and then push down the top edge. If it's a little wonky, that's okay, because what you do is once you have it like this, you're gonna close your zipper all the way to the left, and that will give you a nice straight zipper. There you go. So now all we have to do is flip up the bottom here, pull the paper off of the tape on the bottom edge, and just push it back down. And the nice thing about this tape is if it's not exactly how you want it, you can just lift it up and move it around. So now let's go to the sewing machine and just top stitch from the right side of your lining panel around this rectangle at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do like to back stitch over the zipper teeth just because we're going to be turning the bag out through this, and I like there to be a little extra help there. All right, that looks adorable. So one thing to always check afterwards is the back and make sure it is all the way on the zipper tape. You don't want it to be too high or too low and not on the zipper tape. The whole point of this is to attach the zipper. So now looking at the back still, we can trim down our zipper tape just a bit. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge of the material, but it's okay if it does. Remember, these teeth are plastic, which means you can sew over them and you should not have a problem with breaking your needle. So now take your other zipper pocket panel and lay it right side down, just like this. So our pocket panels are now right sides together, and we're looking at the back of the zipper. Grab some clips and just clip these right sides together. There we go. We're just gonna line up all the edges. Okay, so this bottom edge here is going to be left open, and we're gonna close it later. To make that a little bit easier, what you might wanna do is just take it and fold it up about 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, just fold it up. You're taking both panels, and you can see like one panel is a little bit longer than the other. That's okay. Just fold them both up together. Or you could do as the pattern said, and you can fold them both back, wrong sides together, 1/4 of an inch. Whatever's easiest for you. If it's a little messy, a little difficult, that's okay. It's the lining. You're not gonna see this. All right, so there we go. And just keep it folded as we're sewing. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the sewing machine. We're gonna take our lining and we're gonna lay it right side up, zipper side up. Pull your zipper out of the way. And you're gonna pull back your lining and you're gonna sew along the short edges, the top long edge, the other short edge, and that's it. You're not gonna sew along this bottom edge here. We're gonna leave that open. But at the beginning and the end, right along this bottom edge, you're gonna backstitch really well because the whole bag will be turned out through this hole right here. So you wanna have a lot of support here. So you can sew along the edges at 1/4 inch, 5/8 of an inch, whatever's easiest for you. I like to get nice and close up here on the top. And then over here on the sides, I'll probably sew them at anywhere between 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch. Alrighty, that's the last big prep step. Now we get to just put the bag together. So exciting. Okay, let's just grab all of our pieces. Our exterior, our flap, our lining. Oh, we still didn't make the lining gusset. So I'm just gonna go do this real quick. The lining gusset, just like we did the exterior gusset, bottom edges, right sides together. Sew along this edge at a 5/8 inch seam allowance and then top stitch it just to get it nice and flat. It's exactly how we did the exterior, except we don't have any like strap connectors to deal with. All right, there we go. Now our lining gusset is good to go as well. All right, let's start with the exterior. Take your exterior front and lay it right side up. For me, that has that magnetic snap on it. And then take your exterior gusset and we're going to lay this. Make sure, you know, the ends go up here. You can't really have the ends not go up there. But we're gonna take our gusset, we're gonna lay it right side down. And the first place we're gonna line up is the seam between the two pieces of the gusset and that center mark on the bottom edge of our exterior front panel. So go ahead and line those up and clip together. I like to clip right where they meet, and then I put a clip on each side of that clip. And then I'm gonna take this top left edge and I'm gonna rotate it up so that the corner matches up with the corner on the top left edge of my exterior piece. And then I can just go along the straight edge over here, adding clips all the way down. There we go. I'm gonna do the bottom two. I'm not doing the corner just yet. I'm gonna deal with that in just a moment. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side, pulling that right corner up to meet the right corner of the exterior. Clip together. And then clip along the straight edge on the side and also on the bottom. All right, so once I have that clip, I'm gonna flip the whole thing over so I'm looking at the back of the front panel. And now, kind of like a bowl, I just push this in. I'm pushing in that corner to kind of mold itself to the curve of the gusset. So the gusset stays nice and tall and straight, but the front panel mushes down like a bowl. So I'm gonna do this for both sides. All right, now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew along the curved edge in the side and everything. Add a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the top. I like to sew it with the wrong side of the gusset facing up. I find that's easiest. If you're really struggling with these corners over here, you can take some scissors and make a little 1/8 of an inch deep, very, very small little cut on the gusset panel, not on the front panel, only on the gusset panel, so the gusset panel can spread out a little bit more and go around those corners. So those curves are not too bad. Let's just, again, no patience. Let's just look at it. Oh yeah, that's gonna be so cute. Oh my gosh, this bag is gonna be so cute. Okay, so let's grab our other A panel exterior. And I have not marked the midpoints on this, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Mark the midpoints on the bottom and the top. All right, and once again, we're going to line these up right sides together with the gusset. So gusset right side up, and then the back right side down. Match it up at those midpoints. So the gusset seam is the midpoint for the gusset. And then add a couple clips around it so it doesn't move around on you while we do the next part. And then go up towards the corners, match up those corners and clip right sides together. And then just go along the sides. And I always like to save the corners for last, because those are the most challenging parts. So get all the straight parts done first, and then I just tuck in the corner. The one thing you want to be aware of here if you used foam and you cut down those basting stitches is that you don't want to accidentally push in your quilt cotton so it folds in on itself, and then you're just sewing the foam, but then the quilt cotton raw edges will be poking through in the end. So you want to make sure you pull that quilt cotton up and you're also sewing the quilt cotton material. If it's easier for you, you can just always rebaste those corners. Just go back to the machine and just baste the foam to the quilt cotton on those corners, and then you don't have to worry about this at all. So do this for the other edge as well. All right, so just like we did with the other side, we're gonna sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once again, I am gonna be sewing with the gusset side up. Don't worry about keeping this part flat. If you're having a hard time sewing it, you take this and you mush it out of your way. You just squish it out of your way. You don't have to keep it flat. It's going to get squished anyways when we turn the bag right side out, so it's gonna get squished and wrinkly. So move the part you're not worried about out of your way so you can really focus on this edge. Okay, so go ahead and set this to the side, and we're gonna repeat this for the lining. So just make sure everything has their midpoints marked. We're gonna start with the zip pocket. So take your zipper pocket lining panel, lay it right side up, take your gusset, lay that right side down, and match up the seam with the midpoint, just like that. This is just how we did the exterior, but you don't have to be so careful with the lining, because if there's a pleat, it's not gonna be noticeable. So I am a little bit more loosey-goosey with the lining, but I'm just gonna clip it the same way I did the exterior. All right, so this time when we sew this together, at the top, I'm gonna start at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but as I go down these straight edges, I'm gonna increase it to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So the bottom and the corners are about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but the top is a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so that way it'll fit together properly with the exterior. Okay, Okay, so I ended up doing more about a 3/8 inch seam allowance on the bottom and the sides. That's fine. And you can see there's some pleats in there, and that's fine. Okay, so now we're going to attach the gusset to the remaining lining panel. Once again, gusset and lining panel right sides together. Match up those bottom midpoints and clip together. And then clip the top corners and then the curvy corners. Okay, let's sew this the same way. 1/4 inch at the top, 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch at the bottom. Alright, once you're done with the lining, go ahead and turn it right side out. You can trim the edges if you'd like. Turn it out first and see how it feels. Remember, if you see a lot of pleats here, it's okay. The bag isn't going to be like this in the end. This is not what you're gonna notice in the end. It's gonna be turned the other way. Okay, so there's that. Now grab your exterior, and your exterior is, right side inside, and then grab your flap. Now we're focused on the exterior back panel and then the exterior part of the flap. We're gonna lay those right sides together. So you might have to kind of tuck the flap in there. Match up the midpoint marks on the top of the back panel and then the raw edge of your flap and clip together there. And this should just kind of snug in. So remember, this is flap, exterior, right sides together with back exterior. And just get it as flat as you can. It should not reach all the way to the edge of the back panel where the seam is with the gusset. The flap is shorter than that. Now let's just baste along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have the exterior right side in, wrong side out, lining right side out. And we're gonna take the lining and put it inside the exterior just like that, with that flap in there too. You know what? I forgot to add my tag again. Sometimes I wish I was doing this as a live so you guys could tell me that I forgot to add my tag. So let's see if I can add my tag to this bag. Ideally what I want to do is I want to add it right below the zipper. So I think we can do it. We can do it. We can do it. So I'm going to grab a piece of the super sticky tape because I cannot have this stuff moving around. There we go. And I'm gonna add it to the back of my tag. Isn't this tag beautiful? It's like a pale pink metallic. It's gorgeous. And we want it centered on the zipper, but I'm not gonna be picky, honestly. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, and I have it about 1/2 of an inch below that edge right there. There we go. So I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine, and I'm just gonna try to hold it like this and top stitch around all 4 edges. This would have been easier if I would have done this before I constructed the entire lining. Haha, okay, I did it, and it's okay. Is it perfect? No, but it never is. That's fine. You can see on the back here, I lifted up that zipper pocket. So I did not sew over my zipper pocket. I lifted it out of the way. I left my tails nice and long like I usually do. And I'm just gonna pull those top threads to the back of the lining so I can knot them and be done. All right, now let's finish up this bag. So make sure your lining is flipped right side out. And then take your exterior. Exterior is wrong side out. You're gonna take your lining and take the side with the zip pocket and lay that right sides together with the back of the flap. So back of the flap lining, right sides with zipper pocket. Make sure your zipper pocket is open. Everybody make sure your zipper pocket is open. That's very important. So we're just gonna tuck this in like that. And the first place you wanna start lining things up are the seams between the gusset and the front panels. So those should be the same size. And you can press these seams open or you can press these seams in opposite directions. It just depends on the material you're using, how bulky it is. So I usually like to press them in opposite directions. There we go. Just clip the seams and the center of the gusset. Do this on the other side as well. And then I like to match the midpoint marks up on the front and back panels. Get those together first and then just kind of straighten this out and clip together as you go. Do the same with the back panel. The panel on the back with the flap and everything. That's going to get a little bulky, especially if you're using a thicker material, so just be aware of that. All right, now we're gonna sew along this top edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, however is easiest for you. Some people like to sew it like this, and so they sew from the inside and just rotate it around. Oftentimes I do like to take the table off of my sewing machine so I just have the bottom arm and I kind of wrap this around and do that. I will definitely do that when I'm top stitching, but for this part I think I am gonna sew from the inside of the bag just so I can keep an eye on everything. I mean, so far it's been smooth sailing. I gotta be honest, I'm a little worried that I've made some sort of tragic error because things have been going a little too well. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to gently push the bag through that hole in the pocket. Make sure you don't rip your foam out of the seam or anything like that. Just be gentle here. Give yourself some time. I know I like to kind of walk around the house and pace when I'm doing this because standing in one position makes me anxious. So, whatever you gotta do. All right, let's push this out. Oh my goodness, this bag looks so stinking cute. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So the pattern has you close the lining now. I like to save that for the very last step because I find it easier to top stitch with that open. So I'm gonna take this lining and tuck it in to the bag. So now what we want to do is we want to roll this top edge down. And this is why I said it's nice sometimes to have that hole in the lining still. Because if you've got part of it here where you just can't seem to get it flat, you can stick your hand back through the hole, push your fingers into the seam, and straighten it out. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to add clips all the way around the parts that I can for this top edge, because we do want to top stitch this. So obviously I can't add clips where the flap is, but I'm going to show you what I do for that. So where these seams are here with the gusset, those are the most challenging spots to top stitch over because it's the thickest. So just do your best to flatten it out. If you want to smoosh it down, I know some people take a hammer to it and kind of hammer it down. However you can get that as flat as possible so it doesn't break your needle. And then on the back here, actually the foam makes this very easy. When I was using just the vinyl, I had to really smush this and flatten it out, but because we used foam and everything, it actually is just perfect right there. That's amazing. Okay, so now we're going to just top stitch around this entire top edge. You're going to go around the clipped part, and then when you go to the back here, you're just going to top stitch on the back panel down below the flap, have the flap out. We're going to do this all at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When I do this, I like to start in one of the seams over here, and I do back stitch a little bit, just like one stitch. But I backstitch one stitch, and I like to it's less noticeable if it's in a seam. So also when I top stitch this, I am taking the bed off of my machine and I'm wrapping this around the arm so I can really get around it. Oh yeah, that's looking so cute. Okay, so I did backstitch just a tiny bit in that one seam, but I also left the tails long. You don't have to, you can just do one or the other. But I can pull on these bobbin tails once again and pull the thread to the back. So I'm pulling the top thread to the lining. There we go. And then I'm just going to triple knot these threads. All right, and then I'm gonna trim the threads. And then I grab a lighter and I'm pulling the material away from the threads so the threads are kind of sticking out on their own. And I'm just going to melt. Whoop. So I'm trying not to light my material on fire, just the threads. And that just gets them to kind of tuck in. There we go. And you can push it down. There we go. So there's a little spot in there. There are other ways to make it so you don't see anything, but I'm okay with that. So now let's, oh, this looks good. Let's fold this over and snap it. Look how cute that is. Isn't that cute? I love the foam, guys. I wasn't sure I would, but I do. I love the foam. It's like a little adorable little pillow. I want to make a quilted version of this too now. Oh my word. Oh my word. Okay, so now let's make the strap. This is just so perfect. So there are a lot of different ways to make crossbody straps. I have a video going over a few of them. I'm going to go, for the most part, the way the pattern does it. I'm going to use a combination of sewing the strap and the hardware, and then also some rivets, because I love using rivets. So the first thing we want to do is we want to fold the whole strap in half, wrong sides together, just like this. You will have raw edges if you do it this way. You will have long raw edges here. So if that's not something you want to do, then you're going to double the width. So this is a 2-inch wide strap. You're just gonna make it 4 inches, and you're gonna fold them in like this, and then fold them like a hot dog. Like I said, I have another video going over all that. You could also use webbing, which is, it's just very nice. Webbing is already done for you. You just have to add the hardware, and that's it. And there's so many options. So I'll have links down below with some webbing options, because whatever you're looking for, you can find it. But I did want to show you this way, because this is always fun too. I mean, it's fun to pick your vinyl and make your strap. So you can see I'm just going along. I probably don't even need to clip this. I could just fold it at the machine. But this will help a little bit. Alrighty, now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, sew along all 4 edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so the raw edge and the folded edge. I like to start with the raw edge, and then I fold the folded edge afterwards. That's an adorable strap. I mean, if you want to be a little extra, you know, you could definitely add some edge coating along the raw edges. I think that would look amazing. If I had more time today, I would do that, but I don't. So let's grab our strap and our slider. Take your strap and put it up one side of the slider over that middle bar and wrap it around the other side. You're going to pull that raw short edge about 1 inch over. And now you can stitch this in place, or you can rivet it in place, which is what I'm gonna do. All right, so once again, I've got my hole punch here, and I've got my rivets. The nice thing about rivets is I can just punch the hole, snap this in, and then I can set it all later. So I'm going to just eyeball this. This isn't very well seen, so I'm just gonna eyeball the center right here, making sure I don't scrape my metal. So I popped a hole in there, and then I can just insert my rivet like that. Isn't that cute? Like I said, it's not very noticeable, but it's very handy. There we go. So now, with your strap, if you have a right side of your strap, so for me, that's where my top thread is, you're gonna keep it up nice and straight. Grab one of your swivels and insert it so the swivel is on the same side as the right side of your strap, and then pull it down, just like that. And then you can flip your strap over so you're looking at the back of it, keeping it straight. Pull it up against the back side, so it's where the overhang is here. Insert it into the slider. Pull it up nice and high. Pull it over to the other side of the slider. Pull it down, just like that. So now when I pull on this, my slider is right side up. My hook is hanging out. I'm looking at my top thread right here. And then all the way on this other edge, I have a raw edge. So I'm going to grab my remaining hook on the right side of the strap, wrap it around about 1 inch, just like we did with the slider. There we go. And I'm just going to rivet that. Just pop a rivet right there. I'll be honest, I think that's my favorite thing about the rivet press is doing straps, because it can be a little challenging sewing a nice little neat rectangle right here, right next to the metal. You know, it can be a little difficult. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my press and my dies for my rivets. I'm just gonna insert those real quick and press them. Can easily pull this stuff out of the way, give it a press. And there we go. Now the strap is done. We just have to clip it to the bag. Oh my goodness, you guys, look how cute this is. Okay, so if you were thinking, I don't want to do the foam's not going to look as good as, no, the foam looks so good on this shaped bag. Holy guacamole. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's like a little box. I love that. And this snap, I was kind of worried about the magnetic snap, but it's great. I mean, it's not a weak snap. Look inside of there. And we added the tag. Somehow we remember. We got the tag added. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't close the lining. Oh, no. All right, so I'll just show you real quick how you'll do that here, okay? I can't believe we forgot to do that. So you can see I'm going to pull out the lining just like this. And then all you have to do is just fold those raw edges in on itself, okay? So you see how I kind of flatten out that seam? And then I fold the raw edges in on themselves like that, and then add a clip. And that's all. It doesn't have to be perfect. So you can kind of like pull on it, and it'll help fold the rest of them in just like that. See? Just fold it in and clip it. Okay, now let's just go quickly top stitch right along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, you can see it's just a nice, clean, it's very simple, very clean, very nice, and then we just tuck it in and we're done. Okay, so once that's done, all you have to do is tuck that in. Oh yeah, this is a cute bag. And zip it up. You should probably give your bag a good press. I haven't actually pressed this bag at all, but it's looking really good. I mean, it will look better once it's pressed, but it does look very, very good. Look how adorable this is. I love this bag. Okay, let's see what it looks like on. All right, so let's see how this one looks on. This one has a lot more structure. Oh my gosh, look how cute that is. I can actually make this one a little bit longer. Look at that. That's adorable, isn't it? Look how it just sits like a little box. It's like a little, and it's a pillow too because it's so soft and squishy. I love this. Oh, I want to make so many more with the foam. I bet the foam and vinyl together would look nice. Oh, if you use the foam and the vinyl and you quilt the vinyl with a variegated thread. Somebody please make this bag. Please make that bag. I don't know if I'll have time to do it, but somebody needs to make that happen. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's look at compared to the other one. So you can see, here's the other one with the turn long. I love that too. Like, I do love that it's slouchy. I think that that's great. Either way, however you decide to make it, magnetic snap, slouchy, vinyl, quilt cotton, however you decide to do it, you're gonna love this bag. And it comes together very simply. It might not be quick, but it will be simple. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles to this, but you get an adorable bag in the end. I love this. I hope you love making the Carrie as much as I do. If you make it and you post it on social media, please make sure you tag me. Also tag Sallie Tomato. We want to see your versions. There's like a billion different ways we could go with this, and I think they're all gonna be amazing. Thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you have a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye guys.